Like from what we said, we have something, a device that can send and receive signals to the brain. We can just with that, we can extrapolate it and come up with the craziest things. So maybe we can start with the most believable ones. Like what are like really amazing applications? For example, just what you were saying, like being able to control a robot arm with your brain, that kind of already sounds sci-fi. It's like, what the heck is it? And what other ways? I wanted to ask you, for example, on the more believable side, how can this technology could potentially impact in the future, or maybe even right now, the health of a person? Like, what are potential benefits in our own health with this technology?
Yeah, so as you say, like, this sci-fi controlling robotic arms, not everybody needs that. There's not that many amputees.
Yes.
So it would be better to have something that could help everybody.
But I do wanted to emphasize just that thing exists right now, that is already mind-blowing. And not only mind-blowing in the technical side, and it's also like life-changing for those people. Like, just Google those videos and you can see like persons that have been incapacitated or like cannot move for years or ever, like in their lives, and that now they can feed themselves and be able to feel things. That's just life, and you can just see it in the expressions of their face, right? That like just doing this kind of work that is already here, you're improving the life of somebody like unimaginably. So how could that again be applied to maybe not everybody that has some sort of like disease or it's like not everybody is lacking arms or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's something that's really exciting for me is basically interfacing with the peripheral nervous system. So you have the central nervous system, which is the brain. Peripheral nervous system is going everywhere else in the body. And what's especially exciting for me is something called bioelectronic medicine. And so interfacing with the organs of the body, because the organs also have nerves going in and out, sending and receiving signals. And so what they're finding is that you can control stuff like inflammation. And so basically arthritis, a lot of these kind of things that you wouldn't expect. I mean, they've also looked at...
So is it kind of like sending the signal to the organ is like, don't swell?
Yeah, exactly.
Shit.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I mean, you can think about the pacemaker as well. Like, you don't have to have a pacemaker with its own thing. Like, you could just have the brain sending the signal. And other signals, so like pancreas to create insulin. Even in diabetics, there's insulin cells. There are cells that are alive, and so you could theoretically, instead of having an insulin pump or injecting yourself with insulin if you're diabetic, you could just have a neurostimulator that tells the pancreas to secrete insulin. So stuff like this. So you can kind of bypass a lot of pharmaceuticals and just endogenously from the body itself, you could create this stuff. Maybe there's some signal that got lost or something like this, or maybe the signal's not strong enough. But with the external device, you could actually overpower that and create your own insulin, or do this inflammation thing. So that's really cool. That's a very promising thing for me, because it's like, okay, we can get rid of pharmaceuticals theoretically, and we don't have to flood our body with chemicals to have it apply in one area. The pancreas is like a 1 or 2 pound, organ, and we're flooding hundreds of pounds, 100 plus pounds of our tissue with some kind of God knows what kind of drug and what kind of side effects, and maybe it takes weeks to finally work, and then you want to stop it, then it takes weeks to get out of your system, and God knows what it's doing to your endocrine system, hormones, everything like this. But with a neurostimulator, you turn it on, you turn it off, boom, boom, it's working, it's on, it's off, so it can start working within minutes, and it can stop working within minutes. So if you're like, I'm done, then theoretically, that's how fast.
For that specific example, just to be more skeptical, is it just that easy as sending the signal of just don't swell to the organ, or do you think it might be more of a challenge that we're sending a signal that we think it might tell don't swell, but it might have like unexpected outcomes, kind of like the chemical drug.
Yeah, definitely. That is something that happens, and the way the swelling, the inflammatory response, they think it goes through the spleen and through what's called the vagus nerve, which is a bundle of nerves that goes kind of zigzags through your body and connects to a lot of organs. But as you can imagine, if you're trying to connect if you're trying to stimulate this, you might be stimulating that whole bundle or a different part of the bundle than you think, and it might be stimulating a different part, different organ or something like this. And there could be side effects. Or what's very common is because the vagus nerve goes next to the throat, usually you can have a wearable device next to the throat, and that stimulates it. But as you can imagine, if you're stimulating your throat, you might have hoarseness in your throat, or
What is hoarseness?
Feeling like itchiness too,
Okay.
or kind of like a deep voice, or like you kind of, your voice sounds weird or feels weird.
Just because there's a device in here?
Because there's a device there and it's stimulating. It's like electrically enabling it or turning it on, and it's doing weird stuff that the body wouldn't do. So you can get weird side effects. So it's like kind of, I would say, uncomfortable side effects, or maybe not so harmful, I would argue, versus chemicals in your body, God knows what's going on where. But this is like, I feel like I have an itchy throat or something like this whenever it's turned on.
And they would be for sure counterbalanced by the potential benefits of it.
Yeah,
for sure. And
you have to decide if it's worth it for you.
Exactly. So, yeah, we can touch about that. Like, I would say that it's always going to be like a personal decision, right? Whether to do it or not.
Of course.
But like we touched on the health, like more on the like physical health that we can see. Also, I was thinking that there could be like many psychological benefits too, right? When you have something tap into your brain that kind of knows, like just receiving signals, you could exploit that in many interesting ways. For example, you could have a log of, I'm eating my lunch and I know because of the data in my brain that I'm collecting, this made me feel bad, or I'm with this person and this kind of made me feel awkward. Is that kind of like possibilities that you can see? It's like basically more like introspection, with aided introspection, like knowing more of yourself, because now you have more quantitative data instead of the normal qualitative data that we're used to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can think about it like a Fitbit for everything, and then maybe even you might be able to say like, I'm 10% happier when I eat cheeseburgers or something like this, but really be able to quantify that.
Yeah.
And I think that's also something that's very exciting for me, and something that I think is very promising is to be able to then find these correlations, be like, when I eat chocolate ice cream,
No worries.
like somehow this isn't feeling good, but if I eat vanilla, then it's okay, So it can be. I think it can open up a lot of things, kind of these correlations that we wouldn't really see, and a lot of times to see it on ourselves is difficult.
It's difficult, yeah.
But for other people, you can see it on somebody else. Be like, especially if you have kids or something like this, you're like, wow, the kid, can't eat sugar or something like this, or I don't know, whatever. But you can find these correlations that are a little bit less visible, I guess.
Yeah. And also, going back to the physical thing, just tapping into organs and devices and the brain, you could, for example, have a camera that it's connected to your brain and be able to stream pictures that you can see. That's something that's already kind of happening right now, at least in the lower resolution side. But we could extrapolate it to the future and say, even if you took your eyes out, you could just put cameras in there connected to your brain and be able to see perfectly in 4K.
And you don't have to be limited to the visible spectrum. You can see X-rays, you can see
see
radio
ultraviolet.
waves,
Yeah,
ultraviolet,
yeah.
all this kind of stuff.
I haven't
And
thought of that.
Who
Yeah.
says those cameras need to be connected to you? Maybe you're looking at something across the world. You know,
Right,
there's no limits. Like really, there's no limits. You can do whatever you want.
Right. Yeah, I haven't thought of the ultraviolet. That one's interesting. Yeah, you can for sure expand whatever sensory experience that you have that you're not getting. You could even get like temperature detectors and be able to do like a, have you seen Daredevil? It's a like a comic book hero that it's, since he got blind, then he can like feel micro air variations and temperature, and just with that he can, for example, see your face. So we could theoretically like do stuff with, or similar to that. Like we could just put a bunch of sensors, plug them into our brain, and do stuff with that. Even plug it to the internet. Like just receive stock market data, and it's like, oh, I know the stock market is going up because I feel it. So it's like, oh, sell, stuff like that. Yeah, with what other crazy, like medium future term possibilities can you see?
Yeah, a lot of those, are definitely possibilities, and people have already done that. They've put in chips under their skin, and they can, get into buildings, or they can, unlock their door or something like this with their actual, body or something like this. Again, kind of this cyborg, idea. But I mean, the possibilities are endless. I mean, retinal implants are something that exists too, and so that's what you were talking about, was the being able to see, and this is something that is actually being researched right now, and there have been lots of people that were blind before, and or they had a disease that caused them to be blind, and with these implants they were able to see again. So this is, it sounds like science fiction, but it's not. It's happening right now, and so there's tons of stuff like this too, and I know a decent amount of companies, and so if you have specific questions or something like this, I could be like, yep, it exists, or no, it doesn't exist. Memory implants, that's another one that basically
like implant memories.
So not like implant memories. It's almost like you can think of it like you remember, or you're at a heightened state of awareness, and so you remember much better. And so you can't. We're not to that level, like in the Matrix, where it's like, oh, I know kung fu, and you can teach somebody kung fu, because that's a much more complicated thing that we don't really understand. But we can make it that if you're learning kung fu, and you can learn it faster because of this. You're in a heightened state of awareness as it's going on. So, just kind of crazy stuff. Whatever. It's weird because a lot of the stuff that sounds more science fiction-y is often easier than the other stuff. So really, how hard or easy it sounds, it doesn't really correlate to how hard or easy it is. How actually it is. Yeah.
Okay, and like for example, playing music in your head, so not being able to have the headphones on, just taking your phone or just leaving your phone in the house and say, play Queen for the next 10 minutes, and you don't even need a speaker. You'll have like the electrical connections to sense music, or you can say music, you can say foods, so you could taste a burger without eating the burger, because at the end, that's like, people don't really like. I'm just saying this stuff because when I was reading more about this, I felt the impact this technology could have, and I would agree with many people that say this kind of, if at least half of the hopes that people have on this come true, like this could change like humanity like completely.